Okay, great. So, hi everyone. I will just quickly introduce myself. My name is Oktawia Kata. I'm currently a front-end developer at Ginetta, and here I have my Twitter ID in case if you want to follow me. So today I would like to talk to you about web accessibility and why it's time to start caring about it. So accessibility by definition is the ability to be accessed, which is not really a new concept, right? We are surrounded by accessibility in the physical world. We have signals that inform blind people when the traffic light is green. We have special ramps that help people in a wheelchair to access public transportation. And we have special parking slots that help people with reduced mobilities. So all these measures make sure that physical places are accessible to everyone. Should I move? Okay. Web accessibility is about making sure that online places are accessible to everyone. What it means is that each functionality and all information available in your digital products is first understood and then easily usable by people who are blind, who have hearing impairments, who cannot speak, or who have any sort of physical or cognitive issue. So I think that, like, since most of us in this room work on digital products every day, I believe that we are main actors in this game, so it's on us to, change things or make things happen. But I think at the same time that it can be pretty difficult to see the world in somebody else's shoes. That's why I would like to show you a very quick example of how a blind person would access a digital product. Yeah, let's see if it works.
Link, image, Swiss, banner. Collapsed menu pop-up link. JFK/EN lists one item. You are currently on a menu pop-up link. Round trip. Selected tab 1 of 3 main. From/to group. From/to group. New press enter to select. Use arrow keys to navigate. You are currently on a text field. To enter text in this field, type Zurich, ZRH. Press enter to select. Use arrow keys to navigate. To edit text. You are Warsaw, WAW. Press enter to select. Use arrow keys to navigate. 30/03/2019.
I think this is enough. Has anybody understood what we are trying to do? Filling a form, buy a ticket. Anyone, like, from where to where?
Zurich to Warsaw.
Zurich to Warsaw. Very good. Nice. Okay, so I believe that for many of us, this can be a pretty unsettling experience. This is not something that we're used to, right? But to go from this specific and concrete example to a, let's say, a more broad view of the problem, let's try to quantify how many people can be affected by something like this. So let's try to quantify the need for web accessibility. So there are 3 categories of people that can be affected or influenced. First category is people with permanent disabilities. 20% of people in Switzerland have a permanent disability. It's almost 2 million people in this small country alone. Second group is temporary limitations. So if, for example, you break your arm, you temporarily can only use one hand to access your phone. Wouldn't it be convenient if all the elements on a mobile app were easily accessible just with one thumb, which is not always the case, right? Third group is situational limitations. Isn't it annoying if you want to just quickly check something on a website, but the weather is beautiful, the sun is shining on your screen, and the website happens to have a low contrast between the font and the background color? Wouldn't it be convenient, if the contrast was higher and you could just easily access the information that is there, which is, again, not always the case. Okay, so these are the 3 groups of people that are affected, and I think that by now we understand that there can be really a lot of people that are impacted. But this has been always the case, right? There were always people with disabilities, we always had some situational or temporary limitations. So why is it so important to think about web accessibility today? I believe there are 2 reasons, which are digitalization and aging. So First one is digitalization of basic services. There is a lot of daily activities that experience a shift from the real physical world to the digital world. So sooner or later, many aspects of our life, such as communication, banking, shopping, will experience this shift from the physical world to the online world. Second aspect is aging population. So nowadays in Switzerland, for 3 people in working age, there is 1 person over 65 years old. In only 50 years from now, for 3 people in working age, there will be almost 2 people over 65 years old. That's a huge increase in elderly population, right? And since we grow older as a society, it's also more likely that some of our abilities will be compromised. I believe that we, the main actors in this game, let's say, in this industry, should do something to prevent that. So web accessibility is already important today, as it is impacting daily business and many aspects of our lives. First effect that we can see of the impact of web accessibility is lost profit. So if we neglect users that, as we saw, are almost 2 million people in Switzerland alone, we are losing profit. One of example of this lost potential is This American Life, which is a broadcast with 2.1 million weekly listeners in the United States. In 2011, they decided to implement the transcripts for all the archive of their past programs. This initiative resulted in 7% traffic increase and 4% unique visitor increase on their website. So if web accessibility impacts so many people, it will also reflect on the legislation. There is a lot of countries such as Australia, United Kingdom, and Norway that have already implemented the restrictions for both public and private sector to comply with web accessibility. One of those examples can be SAS, which is a Scandinavian airline. 2 years ago, approximately, they launched a new redesigned website. And after only a couple of months, the state agency for web accessibility in Norway released a report in which they concluded that this website was basically impossible to use for disabled people. They were breaking so many rules such as contrast or keyboard navigation that it was impossible to use. They were threatened with a huge fine of 15,000 francs a day until they complied. So this is actually already the reality in some countries. The European Union is working on a legislation targeting both private and public sector. A draft was submitted already 3 years ago, and it's currently being discussed and consolidated. So what about Switzerland? By law, the services offered by public sector must already meet accessibility requirements since 2004. When it comes to the private sector, there is no strict legislation, although the law says that the users cannot be discriminated. So this is the only thing that it says. Even if this is not like such a strict obligation, I believe that this law can change in the near future, given global trends. Yes, so we saw that missing accessibility can bring lost profit and legal compliance nightmares, but it can also bring a lot of good things that we don't think about, maybe in the first place. First of them is SEO. So if we implement things that are good for web accessibility, such as good header structure or descriptive links description or more meaningful content, it's good both for SEO and for web accessibility. The second point is brand reputation. So we already have a badge, let's say, attached to fair trade grocery products, right? This badge encourages users to choose products that are produced ethically. We also have some sort of certificate that, that we see when we do an online payment. which makes us feel safer when we do an online purchase. Perhaps in the near future, we could have some sort of web accessibility certificate that communicates will be there for you even if your abilities change. So I believe that there is so much we can do, and each of us can have a part in improving web and making digital world a better place. So I just wanted to give you a couple of hints to start with web accessibility. First one is to learn from diversity. I don't know if you saw this article. This is an article from Digitech that was released in January this year after they did their first blind user test. This article was super honest and self-reflective. They were ashamed of how inaccessible their website was and how embarrassing it felt. I believe that those moments of self-reflection are very important because they will impact the daily work that we do. So unplug your mouse and try to use just the keyboard, or turn your monitor off and try to use a screen reader. I believe that in this way we can just become more sensitive to the problems that we might not experience now. Second tip is to get informed. If you would like to get a professional report, you can ask for a consultation from Access for All, which is a Swiss organization for accessible technology use. If you're a designer, you can use one of plenty guides that are created both by Swiss designers and by international brands. If you're a developer, you can check Accessibility Developer Guide created by maybe some people that are here because it's a Swiss creation, or one of really many checklists available online. Third tip is that accessibility is not binary. So I believe that sometimes we are afraid of even starting improving accessibility because it feels complicated. So even if it's true that making fully accessible products can be hard, I believe that even making baby steps and improving some things or considering it in our daily life can make a big difference. Last tip is that accessibility is a team sport, in my opinion. So if you think of a real world, we would never build a building and then attach an elevator afterwards. At the same time, in the digital world, you would never release a product which is not secure or which is not performant. This is debatable, maybe. So why do we keep on accepting in production the products that are not accessible? I believe that accessibility should not be an afterthought, as it often is, at least in my experience. It should be a layer of consideration of everything that we do. That's it. Thank you very much for your attention.